Ladies, gentlemen, good afternoon. So I'm Tristan Tesiger, technical sales from Windmöller and Holscher. And today I will try to speak to you in 5 minutes about color matching, online color matching on a printing press. Normally it's actually a subject. It took us perhaps half a day to speak with the customers. I will do my best. So by Windmöller and Holscher, what we have seen actually on the field, what's happening for color matching. I don't want to discuss why the colors are. We have discussed that earlier on enough. So what's happening on the press when the printer is noticing, oh, the color is not matching what the customer is expecting. So it's got a start point, it's printing. When it's printing, it's actually, oh, there is a difference. Trying to correct the ink with his own eyes. So it asks actually big skills from the operator to go to a certain point where sometimes he's saying, oh, now I cannot correct the ink anymore. I have to change the ink, correcting again, with the goal to achieve an acceptable target for your customers. So what we have seen on the field by making observation, we've got between 2 and 10 runs for actually matching the watt target, and it takes between 30 and 60 minutes, average being 45 minutes. So by WNH, we have also made some research to see where we can save actually downtime time from the printing press. And here you can see actually on a job changeover, we have separated all the tasks, what actually the operators are doing on a printing press to make a job changeover. And you can see that the color matching is almost the half of the time the printers actually need to make a job changeover. So it's why WNH decided to develop an online color matching system. We call it EasyCall. And it gives you the ability to save 50% of the time. But not only 50% of the time. It saves also inks, materials. So with this kind of system, online color system today, we can guarantee we can achieve the target within 2 runs. Target means your customer targets. We're speaking about delta E of 2 or 1.5. Actually, normally it's 2 for dark colors and 1.5 for light colors. So how does it work? You need few things on the machine to make it work. The first thing is you have to know how much inks you've got actually on the press itself to be able to correct it. For that, we've got an online ink weighing system. Once you know that, we've got a special dedicated computer for ink recipe corrections. There is actually an ink formulation software on it, being capable to actually to give you a correction recipe depending on the reference color you want to do. So the thing is, the reference color you want to achieve, they can come from 2 different sources. One is from the press itself, so you can measure it with a spectrophotometer, or you've got digital color books. It means the color is already digitalized and it's inside your system. There are also today some big groups. They're actually for special colors, like PepsiCo, for example. They give you actually the LAB value of the color they want to have. So this LAB value, you can put it in the system, call it back, the machine knows about it. So if it has to make a correction, it uses this digital value already. This online color matching, to be even more precise, you can actually have an online spectrophotometer online on the machine. This online spectrophotometer gives you precise measurements. You've got on more simple system, you can have an RGB system. BST, Chromat, AVT can give you this kind of solution, measuring actually RGB values, comparing between a gold picture and the printing picture. But a spectrophotometer online is actually really measuring the LAB value, what your customer actually wants to have. So you've got the online correction system during the production. And with this system, it gives you also the ability to actually, I would say, have graphs to see how your color is actually changing inside the press. So with a color matching system on the press itself, it gives you the ability to correct straight away before you actually color is drifting to a non-acceptable color. So color matching is actually, on the press, it becomes systematic with this kind of system. So it's a measure-based process. So you're not dependent on what your operator actually corrected it, what your supplier was actually decided, yeah, it's good or not, depending if the light is good, if it's not, if your operator is in love or if he's angry, can change the color a bit. The system is measuring. So there is a measurement. So it's actually standardizing your color on the press. So you've got less color matching run, and you're not so dependent on the operator skills. The color correction becomes easy because it's just a measuring things. The operator just to know how to pour some inks. And the most important for me is to standardize your color matching. So this system, we can say it can halve the time at least from your color matching and from the staff, giving you more production time on the press, and half of the material waste you're actually using for making a job changeover. So color matching is actually, our colleagues earlier on, they were saying about color management. Color management, yes, but color management is a big thing, not only around the press, in the full company. This color matching is giving you a solution on the press itself if your color management, I would say, around the press is not perfect. Thank you.
We'll just have the Q&A a few, I think another 5 minutes with Tristan before he has to leave. So I will start off with a question to you, is that what is the starting point of a company who can go for such a system? Where should they be in their understanding of color before they can put up such a sophisticated online system? And secondly, has it been done anywhere in India? Have you installed it, or have you done it in Pakistan or Bangladesh, or let's say any Asian country as of now? How many such installations and how successfully they are working, and what's the data on material saving and changeover time?
So yes, so to answer your first question, it's not for me. To answer your first question, from the beginning, from my point of view, the color matching on the press is not actually the most important. If you want to have a consistency on your printing, first you have to see the consistency around the press, not only the color. So it means the environment. What about my air? What about my temperature? What about my humidity? If you're putting one day at 20 degrees, the other day at 40 degrees, inks are changing. The film is actually, the film behavior is changing. The press behavior is changing. There are a lot of things changing. So you can match your color in the ink kitchen as accurate as you want. When you bring it to the press, everything will be gone. So for me, the first thing is actually to try to target, actually to have a constant, to have a standardized environment, I would say. And it's what in Europe or in America they're doing. They're enclosing, for example, the printing machine, bringing the rows 24 hours before printing, bringing the inks 24 hours before printing, that everything's got always the time, the same temperature, the same environment. This is my point. The color matching for me is the next step, if you want to ask me. To answer the second question, yes, we do have sold 2 systems actually in India up to now. This system actually has been sold more than 100 times in Europe, in America, in Asia. In India, they are the 2 first ones. They are not in production yet. We are installing them, I would say, or putting them into production. So it's not yet there, but it's a start. But I'm sure today for us, the color matching, what we see in Europe, is actually coming standards like today you've got setting system or register system. Today a special setting system or register system is a ABC things. You need to have it on the machine like a Visco controller. But the color matching is coming more and more standards on the press. For me, in India it's a beginning, but will come. For that we need the help of some ink suppliers, because it's a work we are making together. And in India, this is not here yet. But as I said, we are working on it, and with these 2 systems, I'm very confident it will be very easy in the future.
Questions, please. Questions may be addressed to Tristan. We have time for, let's say, a couple of questions. I know it's very new.
Very good question. Depend on the face of the customer. No, I'm joking. I mean, you're speaking about perhaps 10% more. Less than 10% more. The thing is, if you see how much ink you are saving, now you don't have to see the investments. I mean, ink in India, it's 4.5. I mean, I don't know in rupees, sorry for that, but it's 4.5, roughly $4.5, $5, I would say, per kilos. If you can now decrease from 2 runs, I mean, down to 2 runs, I mean, there are few kilos you are saving per job changeover. I mean, this kind of system is actually, you've got a payback within less than a year.
Any other question? We have time for one more question, one last question. Manoj Bisht, I see you sitting there. Do you have a question? We don't have to be frightened by the advanced system that he's talking about. It's doable, right?
Yeah.
He's promising it is doable. It's practical.
No, it's working. The thing is, I mean, normally there are so many questions. But of course, if you have any question, just ask us. We can come to you and discuss that. I mean, normally it's not something you can answer in 2 or 3 minutes. It takes a few hours, I would say, to go around it, to speak. This kind of system's got different solutions, different options. It has to be adapted to your needs anyway.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'm not Anil Namagude. I'm his colleague, Vineet Vishwanathan. I'm afraid he couldn't make it up. So I'm here to fill in. I don't have a presentation. Thanks. Thank you, Pactolus, for giving us this opportunity to be in here. Well, when you speak about color standardization, the first example that comes into my mind is a toothpaste. So if you consider Pepsodent, well, the toothpaste comes with a carton and a lamy tube. So if you think about it, both are different substrates. One is a lamy tube, one is a folding carton, and printed by 2 different printing presses, maybe printed across in 2 different countries, maybe in Thailand, Indonesia, or in China. Still, how do you ensure that the design, what you have on the lamy tube and on the carton, are the same? Because that's the brand identity, and you need to ensure that it's consistent across 2 different pack type, which goes together to a consumer. So that's where I always consider that the brand consistency and standardization of color is quite crucial. So I'm sure the participants in here are having good thought process, which would be, of course, a good take home for us all. Thank you.
We'll now invite Dr. Gary Mott to come and give his speech.
Thank you for the invitation to speak today. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the ladies. If you can't see this, well, go for a coffee. The reason why we do color matching, and the reason why we want to change away from the manual system to an actual computer system is because of here. The human eye is critically flawed. Ladies, you have 10% better color blindness than the males. It's true. So well done. Most of the print shop guys are gentlemen, so we have to try and balance the scorecard. We have to equalize the thing. So first of all, standardization. I call this system CTSW, computer system that seems to work. I'm not saying this is the best. I'm not saying this is the most updated. I'm saying this is one over 20 years I found most commonly practiced and most useful. So when viewing a color, you need to have a standard light source. Every light source will change the color in any environment. I see color matching schemes where you've got no light booth, no gray, no white, just a couple of bulbs. Impossible to do visual light matching. Secondly, the colors you buy will not give you Pantone range. The Pantone range there in black is what you will get if you mathematically calculate the Pantone book. However, the ink systems will all have different pigments, all have different properties, and will never give you an exact match. the profile, the color gamut is completely different. So if you go from a vinyl system to a PU to an NC, the pigments will change, and likely the color space will change as well. How do you view it? You have a color computer. This area in yellow here is the most accurate part of your eye. So if you hold a finger out here, 2% dot round about the coin, this is how you focus color. If you look at the 10%, it's like looking at this. A 10% view gives you a lot more scattering of light and a less accurate color vision. So you need a light source, and you need to choose your spectator angle correctly. I'm not sure if you can see this on these things, but what it gives you is a 2%, a 10% difference in angle will give you a clear demonstration that the colors are different, just by looking at different parts of the eye. So I think my friends from the color computers will explain far more, but essentially the light goes up into the machine, scattered, and then a diode will calculate or work out the wavelength of that particular color, and it will give you a reflectance curve. Homework for later, you can calculate this back into an actual figure, but this is later. What you end up at the end is a fingerprint. And this to me is, for the ink chemist, is really critical, because every color has a different or slightly different color curve. So if you specify, I want a light fast color, and then somebody puts in a non-light fast color, your color curve will change. And you can spot this. So counterfeiting could also be slightly, or I'm not saying this is a foolproof method, but it can be counteracted by the use of color chemistry and color measurement. At the end, you go through all this process and you end up with a delta E. What does delta E mean? It's basically a gap between what you want and what you have. Again, I'm not going back to the calculation. There are many ways of calculating delta E, and I'm not going to go into that. But my view, and only my view, is if I use delta E CMC 2:1 ratio, this calculation gives me a good idea of the color accuracy. If you look in the graph, it's a square, but top corner and bottom corner are often visually different. CMC 2:1 gives you the best match of visual and computer science. And at the end, what you need to do is, if you've got your LAB figures, you have a 1 centimeter square on your side stripe, you use CMC 2:1, you have density targets, you're going to get a quality print, and you're going to get consistent color. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for bringing out some very complex concepts simply. I don't know how simple you found that, but he mentioned something called a standard human observer. We'll have a question for him on that later. Okay. Now, can I invite Felix from X-Rite Pantone?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try and take it fast. We talked about in the previous session about brand being very specific, asking for specific requirements, and that is why we are trying to achieve our ultimate goals. But the best part, what we see in India today is our own printers are actually trying to graduate, not to only meet the brand requirements, but actually to move up in the value chain to make sure that they are competitive across the global supply chain. Talking about X-Rite, apart, we do color matching solutions for all the color that is seen across in this world, from vegetables to fruits to cosmetics to toys to textiles, and whichever you call it, we do a complete solution for the color that is seen in today's world. Even to an extent, we do inline color solutions management to some of the industries like paper as well. We definitely are the color authority in the globe today because we have the wide gamut of the industry. We serve all the supply chain requirements across the different verticals in this industry. Spread over, this is the global map of what X-Rite is spread over. a part of the Danaher company. How we do it? We are a part of the Danaher, which is a global leader, and we do implement the Danaher management systems to actually run our daily businesses, where we talk about quality, speed, and flexibility in our businesses. Just a quick view about our customer range, that what we have across the globe. What we see today in the market is basically a decision is taken within about 13 seconds to finalize a product, primarily depending on its packaging. And the packaging, where our friends told earlier, needs to be more vibrant and eye-catching. That is where the entire decision takes in. This has been a big challenge across the globe, where we see 25% of the brand owners do have the frequency, the packaging print supply chain issues. 42% say there is a problem in the rework, and 51% have justified that they have lost about $550,000 a year. These are actually the global figures. Might be slightly different in India, but of course we do also face losses because of our reworks. My friend already touched this topic, the metameric effect. I will not talk much about it. What is the final result that we look at? As brands and specifiers, they want to drive accuracy, consistency in color, and reduce the time into the market. And what are we struggling? As converters, we have the challenge in reproducing the color, in reducing the waste, and press optimization. So X-Rite as a company gives you a solution to make sure that we take care of all these three aspects by making sure that the right quality is attained, the flexibility in operation is there, and also the speed to the market. With the various solutions that we have in terms of hardwares and softwares, we do have a complete array of solutions that we can provide, from the standards, where we can measure and calibrate them, formulate, control, and report the color back, and we also give professional color services. These are some of the hardwares that we provide for the converters as well as the brand owners. Some software solutions. And my friend already talked about it from ESCO, since we are a group company. Pantone Live, which is primarily today's main talk in the Western market, most of the brands are trying to align with the systems and processes so that the challenge that is there currently between the substrates, the printing processes, and the ink supplies that we have been getting across are actually in line, and the best achievable color can be attained out of it. So this is one of the tools that we are actually having an offer in the market. The second one, we have already there. We have started the printer certified programs. We are actually trying and working out. We already have about 10 odd printers that are certified in India, and this is a fast spreading news. Apart from that, we are also using all the colors that have been maintained, printed, all the entire process is done. The entire visibility is the biggest question mark in the entire communication, in the entire supply chain. So we also have devices and tools which actually can rationalize and meet the demands, where a brand can see actually what is the scorecarding system that we have. The new implementation that we have, the color cert, can actually give you a scorecard, give you a tolerance limit, give a reporting system, a feedback system to your brand, as well as your own practices within your own units. So we try to maintain the competency across in the market. And to finally come into it, we have a new offering where we are working on a complete closed-loop solution system for the printers. We are the X-Rite hardware and software solutions coupled with the Rutherford inline system. We are able to give you the optimum achievement that is required. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to all the good advices over the last couple of hours in technology. I will take you a little different. I will not take you into the technology part of it. I will take you into the reality part of it. Because after being into industry for many years and seen the highs and lows, seen the long hours on the press for proofings, which I think I would like to share in a small time. See, implementation of color management, the topic, is very complex and vast. It's very imaginative before we actually print it. You get satisfied after the result, though. But my advice would be, keep it simple. Maintain a proper disciplined approach at every stage, whether it is the design, pre-press, in kitchen, online checks, all the process workflow. I would rather take you into a simple, I'm sure you're aware of Six Sigma, but some basic principles of Six Sigma, which are simplicity, predictability, and visibility. Yeah? So what is simple? Simplicity. Do your basics right in pre-press. Yeah? I'm sure the pre-press people will agree on that. Get your press standardized, get your sequence standardized, then your print process parameters. Here I've added one thing about analogs, which I think, Mr. Dave, probably we should see more of people who are actually transferring the ink onto a substrate. Yeah, maybe in the next session. I would say that plays a very important role because very often at the time of proofing, the last thing what you do is change the analogs. Am I right, JC? Yeah? And then you get the result. So get your process parameters right. Predictability, what is that? Everybody, including the brand owner, the pre-press head, the print head, come together. Imagine how it is looking. Use the various top-notch softwares. I think everybody has the best of techniques here. But most important, I would say, is the team involvement, right? From the pre-press to the press, and the understanding of what you finally need is important. Yeah? And what it will give is the visibility between the simplicity and the predictability. If these two are taken in a very disciplined manner, I'm sure your product has to be good. Yeah? Something which, I don't know, many people are aware of TQM and TPM. I would rather propose something for the industry stalwarts to start TCM, Total Color Management. Yeah? What are the pillars? Share the knowledge, train at levels, different levels, have a proper coordination between pre-press and press. Often that is the missing element. Yeah? Pre-press head thinks in a different direction, the press guys thinks in a different direction. Get them together. Yeah? Print equipment conditions, upgrades. Every day you see different upgrades happening, so upgrade your press, very important. And the most important point in India, human control. Any process, your human control makes the major difference into getting consistent quality throughout. Quality control and time management, online, offline, very important. For a converter like us, levels of support from all levels of management, very, very important. You invest into a high-level technique and then you don't give results, it's bound to be questioned. Yeah? Most important, regular evaluation at every stage, benchmark it with what you have done before and where we are now, which is why I say a disciplined approach, a simplistic approach. A few challenges I would say during the implementation of color management. Every color management process is a high investment kind of technique or equipment, with less returns. I would say less returns, but it is questionable. Most of the techniques offered, if not used to the fullest, and I'm sure everybody agrees, very often the machine has got automatic viscosity control, machine has got a fine ink management system, but if it is not controlled to the fullest, I'm sure your end result is not good. Yeah? Your time taken on the proof, first proof, very important. You cannot, very often you face a challenge of not getting your proof right immediately. And the most important, consistency. Yeah, every brand manager will like that. I'm sure Nestle and Mami Poco, they believe on consistency. And to last end with some steps, take small steps, intelligent steps, reduce time between steps by sharing and learning knowledge. Do not jump into anything unless proper evaluation. My competitor has it, why should I not have it? Don't do that. Yeah? Take your own time, analyze it properly, and you do it. Take a correlated partner together. Analogs guys, ink guys, color measurement guys, substrate, all people should be together to make it a success. Yeah? And of course, analyze your wastages and time management at every stage correctly. Thank you.
That is truly said right from the shop floor, and a very simple but disciplined implementation plan. Now, let me introduce the young innovator, Jignesh, please.
Hello, friends. I'm not carrying any presentation today. Maybe after the total people who are attending over here, most of them are professionals from one or the other field, or might be representing some or the other companies at different levels. I being the owner of a company, I would brief you about how a transformation from a printing device called a rotogravier and a flexo has transpired at my company. This is one of the things we always compare our technologies as to if rotogravier is better or maybe a CI flexo is better. Should we print on rotogravier? Should we print on CI flexo? A lot of decisions that any brand owners or maybe any owner would take to buy a machine. In 2014, there was one gentleman who came down to my factory and told me, sir, you're printing on a rotogravier you're printing on a surface with a rotogravier. Why don't you think about CI flexo? And I told them that, see, I don't still believe in the CI flexo terminology of saying that short-term jobs are good on CI flexo, because we, a billion people, are our SKUs so small? No. Our SKUs are not so small. So why do I buy a rotogravier? Why do I buy a CI flexo? But then over the time, I pondered over the same thing, saying that the person was saying something which I heard that after conquering the total market, maybe the quantity which we were producing, we were selling it off to major four companies, and we are finished with everything. So what do I next? So we thought that how do we save money? And then the thought process started with that CI could be an option. So saving is something which happens because of the ink. The other saving is the environment which you operate the CI flexo. The saving is when you have few things constant rather than messing up with everything, which he rightly said, simplicity is the game for CI flexo. So when you keep something constant and you have only one variable, you can pinpoint a variable which is disturbing your prints, your maybe colors and everything. So the journey began in such a way that I evaluated all the CI flexos which were available in maybe in Europe, because you don't find them in India. And I came to a conclusion that we need to get something which is much better, which can control my cost. So we thought, why don't we ask the suppliers of the machinery what extra they can give? So the first point which came to my mind is ink. The lowest amount of ink that can be coated on a substrate is from CI flexo. That is a proven. I don't need to say that, and I don't need to prove that it is the lowest. That is one thing. The second is the kind of environment we operate in. In India, we operate in an environment of 40 to 45 degrees. You have solvents which evaporate. Where the costs go, I don't know. I still don't know in my factory, but then I thought I need to have an ink cooling system that is mostly desired for each and every manufacturer in India to have an ink cooling system, because the environments which we operate are quite high for the evaporation rate to happen. And the third thing that came to my mind was one which Tristan discussed, was color management. And then we thought, is it necessary to get a color management software online? And then we kept on thinking about it, that if we are buying a very good press, Why don't we have that too also in the press? But then it came to my mind, being an owner, how many guys or how many companies or how many MNC companies would appreciate our online color amendment system? None. Because we are 10 years behind from the world. So that has to be a fact, because one of my friends said, toluene-based inks, we have implemented today. They were 10 years back. My friends would say, SIGWA guys are here, they would say it was way in 2000 we have introduced those inks. Because the reason is we do not care what happens to a supplier. You need to pay for it to get something good. So that is how things happen, and we got a new CI Flexo. But the journey did not end there. And then it was such that we thought CI would be the same process as a rotogravure. But none of things happened. We struggled for two months. And one fine day, I was sitting in my office and I say that I made a wrong decision of buying a CI Flexo, because nothing was correct. I was not making my things simple. As Vinay said, you need to make things simple and constant for things to be achieved. And that's what we did. And today, I guess, I would be one of the happiest persons saying that CI Flexo is the next game changer in the coming years. And I would say the other thing is that we might move towards, maybe 20 years behind in terms of printing, because everyone needs to know about the Plastic Waste Management 2016 law, which clearly says that composite material is the way to go and recyclability is the way to go. So surface printing is the next game changer. And CI Flexo, with the thinnest micron it can print, would be the change. That's what I foresee. Thank you.
I will ask Vinay, as the man who has done it with simplicity and discipline, to just chair this session and take it forward, taking all the ideas that have come, including what Tristan presented, and have the panel discussion on actual implementation. Our focus is making it simple and showing the road to shop floor implementation of color management. Yeah, because Anil is not here, so will you please take the mic?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dave. Yeah, so we have the experts of color here. We have the experts of measuring color here, and of course the users here. I would start with the color. Gary, maybe we start with you. Very often, the brand owners always feel that the consistency is very missing element in India. Lot after lot. So how and where we are lacking in India compared to the European or the American countries, where they do it right at the press. So do you think a simplistic approach would be better for converters, to use it in a right way?
Well, it's not that Europe do everything perfect either. But what I mentioned in the early stages was, there's no standardization here. So if I go around each print shop, and for 8 years I've gone around, I've never seen two light booths the same. So how people look at color, what sample they take, how they compare, is variable. So it's completely dependent on the human eye. There is no color measurement at all that I can see. If we can step out flexible packaging, we supply a lot of ink for tobacco, and in tobacco, there it is completely computer controlled. The eye marks, the color computer data, that are all done this way, and I see a lot more consistency there. So I think it really is come back to standardization of the color matching process and having color databases to measure against, rather than LSDs, which are open to interpretation.
I think LSDs is something in India very common, which is very, I think Felix do agree on that, you know. And maybe I'd request Felix, you know, to often the color management techniques, the equipments are used in a better way by each and every person. So how efficient and how, you know, financial benefits you get? I mean, what are the financial benefits you get from a proper measuring or instrument which measures the color is what I would like to hear from you.
I go back to your statement as well as what Jignesh said just some time back. Basically, a process, be it color management or the production process, it needs to be simple, definitely very, very simplified, and a SOP needs to be designed which can actually be understood by the floor level operators. For a simple example, even before going into a technology-driven color matching or color control system, we go to a simple visual inspection system of a light booth. There is a specific SOP for a light booth. More than 70% of the people today would watch a color in a light booth in an open environment, whereas the ambient conditions actually do not give you the right appearance of that color. It becomes very, very subjective. So in this environment, even implementing technology or an inline system or a beautiful color control system, I think would not work unless you have an SOP design within your company which can be practiced rightly. Again, keeping it very simple, the investment is something where you need to look up in graduating over a period of time. You cannot go into an inline system just because you have got a beautiful press. You want to just be quickly into the market to make sure that you are along with the Western world. A lot of other environment conditions do affect the water quality, the temperature, the humidity. There are a lot of other external factors which make it very subjective for us to make sure that we are matching their requirements. But yes, I would say as an Indian, I'm still very confident that the manufacturers in India are not just following the processes and getting up to the mark just for the sake of a brand requirement. Actually, the graduation level is picking up to build up one's own quality and competition in the industry.
Felix, I reckon seeing more of a newsletter of Pantone Live worked on Haynes beans on color standardization. So how popular is it in India? I mean, are converters receptive to it, and are the brands willing to pay extra for the same?
Pantone Live is something that has been implemented about a couple of years ago, and we have started it with not only with Haynes, but with many of the brands, major brands. Sorry, I cannot name those brands because of non-disclosures. But the Pantone Live system, as my friend Arun explained some time back, it's actually you're not matching your printed color to a standard directly. You actually build an intermediate dependent standard, which actually in simple terms we call it achievable standards. So we would still have a challenge because delta 2 or delta 3, whatever we have to maintain, is still a pretty large delta factor in the printing industry as compared to any other industry, especially the textiles, where it is delta 0.8 to 1.0. So Pantone Live is one game changer, which is for sure in India will be expected and accepted by most of the converters. And in Haynes especially, it has actually been on a global rollout.
It was typically by a brand management company named Sun Branding, I believe.
Yes, yes.
So do you think, I believe they partnered with Sun Chemicals and
yes. Our back-end partner is Sun Chemicals.
The ink, and also they partnered with Pantone
yes.
Live in terms of a rollout.
Yes.
So do you think centralizing, coming to earlier topic, do you think centralized pre-press as well contribute in terms of standardizing the colors?
It need not be a centralized pre-press alone. It's actually depends upon each converter. We do have situations where people come to us to have individual partner licenses for Pantone Live. It not be driven as a global rollout. We do have a public cloud which is available, which can be done for a centralized approach, but then we have a private cloud which also can be for individual approach. So I would say it is actually, in commercial terms, let me not go back too much technical, but in commercial terms, it's actually the implementation process that we lay down to make sure the SOP is followed. I think we will be there if we are able to do it.
And how receptive and how common is it in India?
At least for the last half a year that we have gone through meeting out this, about 147 printers for various brand owners. The first time the project was actually shown to people, it was a no-no. It was a big no-no. But I think now, having known after the Drupa show, we have a beautiful tool which is called as a visualizer tool, where you have different substrates. You can actually visualize the entire process before you can actually print samples. This is what is making it interesting to people.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Mr. Jignesh, in your thought process of changing from roto to flexo, as you mentioned in your speech that, there were a lot of challenges and sometimes you often felt that you did a wrong decision and later you came up with, yes, I've done it right. So can you just give us few tips about what made it right?
I guess the simple thing I always follow in life, you need to contact the king makers first. So the king makers of inks, the king makers of your analoxes, the king makers of sleeves and the processes, and hire a good person who is a king maker. So I guess I have got the best thing in my company. So the next process for me was to keep something very constant. I'm saying that to keep everything constant. So the only culprit that could be there was the pre-press guy who would make the plates. You feed him everything from the temperatures you're going to operate your press, the ink temperatures, the density of the inward inks, the density you want after the print is been printed, and then the environment which you're operating the press. So now you know whom to catch if something goes wrong. Because while investing into a press, many people told me that you don't find good people to run the press. So there were companies who have different registration systems which are offered in the market. Some people say, we have this, you can do this, and. So once we evaluated a few options, we came to a conclusion that we need a system of registration which is operator independent. So there, again, I have made a constant. So now I need to concentrate more on my pre-press, which eventually everyone sitting over here would agree to that the most important thing is the pre-press. And that is how we progressed by getting the pre-press right from the day we started, and then today I would say still things remain constant, but the pre-press is the thing which is more important to any of the flexo running good. Yes.
I have a question for Vinay. Right. So if you consider the brands bring in brand management companies to ensure there is standardization of color. So they believe that rather than sending across the files to different printers, for their pre-press you need to do a pre-press or repro on it and then print it. Bringing a centralized brand management company who could do all of the adaptations and then do a pre-press on it as per respective machine's profile, and then sending it to individual printers could bring in standardization of color or consistency of brand color. So as per you, in India, how successful is it? And how receptive are the printers towards such of a process? Because if they are sending across a print license team for doing a fingerprinting, it's been affecting your print, your printing time, your machine time. So how receptive are the printers towards it?
So basically what happens in India, or rather the evolution of Indian print and packaging industry is from, we all people have a bit of going first with the smallest machine available and getting into the market. So we buy an Indian machine and set it right. I think most of the business people will agree on that, who are into business, that you start with a small thing. Now when you upgrade yourself from say 1990 to 1995 model machine, then to 2005 model machine, the centralized approach of pre-press would affect the printer in a much difficult way. I would say it is not easy because the technology or the kind of equipments are there on every machine. I mean, I'm sure many of the converters will agree that, like say for us, we have got 3 machines. But if I have to print a Mami Poco job on my 2006 machine and a 2016 machine, the printer will always opt for the 2016. But then with this complexity of changing designs, short time, why we are going towards Flexo? We are going for Flexo for fast changeovers. Does it mean that the 2016 machine is booked for some other job? You are stuck. You cannot do that same job on a 2006 machine. So the press standardizations, I would say, are more important in this area, where any pre-press standardization should be matched with any and every type of print machine on the print, which is the challenge, which is the most difficult task. And whoever is doing it, hats off to it, because that's something which it's very difficult for me also. I have not ever done that. But yeah, you can come closer, not perfect. Gary, do you agree on that? Different print machines, different results on the same shop floor?
Yeah, it really depends on the set of the machine, because I think with Flexo you have the unlocks choice as well, which is a lot more critical than perhaps in Gravure, where you've got a standard cylinder. So one of the things that the variability I see in Flexo is people going, I think one of the earliest say, going from a 250 to a 360 analogs will fundamentally change your approach. So standardization is probably more critical for me than changing machines. But as you say, if you start running higher speeds, then different transfer rates will occur. So if you've got a 2006 running at 250 meters and one running at 600 with the same ink and the same unlocks, you will get a different result.
What is this concept of Pantone life? Because you are using a term, I don't know how many people are actually understanding what is Pantone life and what difference does it make, number one. Number two, how it combines with X-Rite and then gives a more comprehensive solution.
I would like to actually, to understand it much better, I want Arun from ESCO, if he can just join me a minute. Because the implementation of Pantone Live has been done in connection, basically in conjunction with ESCO, because they serve the brand owners market.
Yeah, you can speak.
Well, during my discussion, I mentioned about the Pantone books, the Pantone color guide, which is analog today. There is no real measurable value if you want to refer it again and again as you move in the process. What the technology has done, we know what is the master looks like, how does the master look like. So that is there in the database. So when we try to achieve as close as possible to that master standard, so what is that, how far we can reach to get that color? So that is dependent on process to process, material to material, inks to inks. So when we achieved the closest possible, that became a dependent standard. So now that is act as a reference when it comes to taking it to the print. So how is that categorized? So first we built the dependent standards based on process, substrate. So once that is done, then it is spectrally measured and stored. So irrespective of measuring device, and when the data is taken into the prepress, so it knows what is that conversion from a spectral value to LAB value required where that color falls in. So once you know this is the achievable color and this falls in this LAB value or this spectrum, so it is then pushed to the, for example, say digital color proofer with the color engine. So when the color engine sends the data, taking into consideration how the color needs to be simulated on the digital press, so that's one part, digital proofer. So once it is achieved, when the color is standardized there, so then the same color is matched on the press. So there is a way of Ink Kitchen to download the data. So when the data is received from the pre-press artwork, so the data is fed into the system. The system says, okay, to achieve this, say for example, blue, this is what the ink specification is. So the ink is prepared based on the specification. Again, the value is digital there. There is no analog reference or a physical reference. So once it is printed on the press, again, that is measured back and compared against the digital standard which is already set. So you have a master, then you have a dependent master, which always keep referring to what is achievable against that master. So now it's very clear what is achievable, which is the dependent master. So everyone focus onto the dependent master, not onto the actual conceptualized Pantone color.
So if I may understand it like this, that right now we have the Pantone shade card which is on a piece of paper.
Yes.
Right. Now what you are saying is that you have done it on different substrates. It could be a metallized substrate, a foil substrate, or
Yes.
a plastic film, a pearlized film.
Yes.
On different substrates, not just on paper.
Correct.
But it tries to go as close to that original standard of paper
Yes.
as possible.
Yes.
So if I call that the original standard, the Pantone
Dependent
book,
standard.
no, if I call that original Pantone book as the original standard,
Yeah.
this then is a derived dependent standard,
Exactly.
which is more achievable.
That is the target.
That is, see, right now we are doing that dependent standard on our printing machine,
Yes.
wasting 6 hours, 8 hours of printing time.
Correct.
And ultimately we come across a dependent standard along with a customer.
Perfect.
Now you are going to a universal dependent standard. For every Pantone color, there is a corresponding dependent standard for a kind of corresponding substrate.
Correct.
And that is residing in a cloud.
Exactly. It's
And
stored
then
somewhere
that
in the
is-
cloud as a digital value.
As a digital value, as a set of LAB values, as a set of spectral values. Spectral values, okay. And you can download it from the cloud. You are saying you can download it
Yes.
from the cloud. Maybe you charge for it. Maybe you need a license or something. I don't know how much you charge. You better give that out.
Yeah.
And you know how much it costs.
Yeah.
And then when you download it, then you have a reference standard which you can discuss
You
between
already know what is
brand owner and the supplier.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, where does the ink supplier come into the picture in this?
Ink supplier, where does it, when you receive the specification, once the ink is taken into the system, once the file is received and you know which color is being used, or which dependent standard has been used, then it specifies what should be the specification for ink mix.
That's where the libraries are actually built in.
Yeah.
The libraries,
Yeah.
about 22 odd libraries
Yeah, so
have been built in.
it's not, we are not referring to, say, a one print process as such. So when the decision is made, which printing process it has to be printed and what material it has to be printed, when a designer chooses a Pantone color, he immediately goes to that and finds the best suitable match of the dependent color. So which specifies what is the equivalent LAB value of that ink from the spectral value.
So the ink supplier starts from that LAB
Yes.
value and supplies the
Exactly.
ink accordingly.
Yes.
Gary, do you agree with that? Is that my understanding or whatever you say?
I agree. What we would be given is a set of spectral data.
Yes.
We put it into our color computer, which has got a database of pigments. It will formulate the closest match, the lowest cost, whatever it may be, along with the specified delta E.
Yeah.
And then we would supply the ink to a proofer. The proofer would then give you the target or the master data,
Yeah.
shall we say.
Exactly.
So if I may like to put it this way, the color is specified as a spectral value,
Yep.
but when it comes to reproduction, actual print reproduction, you convert it to an LAB value.
Yes.
Or spectral
And
data.
then you see how much of that you can achieve. The delta E tells you how far you are away from that LAB value.
Yeah.
But the color is specified as a spectral value.
Yeah, and the advantage is that you're not comparing against a piece of shiny paper. You can use the actual substrate, so you can measure the substrate. That will cancel out the substrate to make sure that that's not having an effect on the color. Then you put the color on top, so you've got a perfect match. Where today you're really looking at a metallized film, transparent dye-based ink against a paper ink. It's impossible.
It's impossible. So the dependent standards are also categorized. So you find about 22 standard libraries. It's not one library we are talking about, which is public. That means anybody can use. And there are also private libraries, which is typically driven by brand. They may use some part of the public library, but they will also have some internal colors, which is the private library, which is exclusive to the brand and whoever are their suppliers are. Coming back to your point of why not Pantone color book as such? So if I take example of printing an orange, printing with two printers. So one printer, when it prints, it may go towards the red, even though keeping the delta E within the acceptable tolerance, say about 2. The other printer who prints, the orange goes towards the pink. Even then, it's compared to orange, it's delta E2. But when you compare printer 1 and printer 2, your error stack is quite huge. And the consumer doesn't look at the Pantone color swatch. He compares against the products.
Each is within delta E.
Yes.
But when you compare the two, it's probably...
That's the error stack.
Yeah, it is error stack. It may not be 2 delta E, but then
more than
it is some statistical derivation.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it begins to look absolutely different.
Exactly.
So what this Pantone Live does,
when you know you are already what is possible to achieve, so when you compare against that, the delta E is much lower. Probably one customer, one printer may be printing at 0.8 and the other may be printing at 1.2, still within the tolerance of 2 delta E.
So would you advise all converters to go over to Pantone Live? Would that be the way forward?
Again, it is not just converter alone who can make the decision. Yes, converter has a role to play, but it's the brand which should accept what is achievable color. Today, not every brand knows what is achievable. They just refer to either subjective color, grass green, or they refer to the Pantone book, which is analog. Of course, global level, they know what are the challenges, and that's when they started getting into the Pantone Live and digitizing the color value so that which is achievable, not something which is out of scope.
And in this system, there is no physical LSD.
There is no physical.
You don't have to maintain any
physical
LSD.
LSD. Again, you can refer back to the Pantone book, how long it's been handled, and how the color is interpreted. Yeah, it's visible, right? You're looking at.
Just addition to that, there is one more aspect that actually comes in that is you would not be required to print the color on the substrate. You can actually visualize the color on various substrates, and that visualization block will actually give you what is the best delta E that is achievable. If you go in for a printing on a white sheet vis-a-vis to a brown paper, you cannot maintain delta E2. It could vary anywhere between 2 to 14.
It is very important to make the decision at this time of design, which substrate you are going to use, which process you are going to use.
So Vineet, what does that do to your business model, where you are actually proofing on the given substrate? Now, if with Pantone Live, they can bypass that, what does it do to the Trigon business model?
Well, if you look at a particular design, until and unless you don't really feel how your design looks on actual substrate with different finishing on it. For instance, if you have the same design on different substrate with multiple finishers, if you have foiling, if you have embossing, if you have matte finish, the brands would want to see it in their hand, feel it. only then they would want to prove it. And they would also want a contract proof, which they could share it with the printer so that they know this is the reference and this is the color that they needed to achieve. That makes sense. So
that's where the color engine comes into picture. The color engine drives and says, based on the dependent standard, how it's printed on a digital press.
Yes, I mean, see, for instance, if you look at a design agency, it's right, you know, a design, that's where the inception starts. So if you look at a design agency, they would come up with a concept which may or may not be attained by a printer. They would come up with a concept which they would show it to a printer in a computer, which which is RGB. They don't even know if the same gold could be attained. So you would need something which a physical sample, which a design agency would need to show it to a brand, stating that this is the concept and this is what I have reproduced on a computer and this is what I could reproduce on an actual substrate. This is what I would need to attain.
But again, you're talking about a lot of variables here. When you say digital press, again, what color management it goes through and how is that color management handling this Pantone Live or the dependent standard?
No, see, if you look at Pantone Live, it comes in a later stage by itself.
Pantone Live, that's why I said, it has to start from the inception stage, design conceptualization stage.
So globally, how successful do you think, or which are the brands that has been able to use Pantone Live and it's been able to show success?
It's NDA.
That's what
Probably
I told you.
one name I can take, a big print converter who is into flexible, Tetra Pak, is rolled out globally.
I mean, if you look at any of the brands,
everything, digital proofing, conventional printing.
Here I have an easy way out. Your business model is very sustainable. You can use Pantone Live for the proof also.
Exactly.
So whatever mock-up you show, because he wants to see physically in the final shape of the pack, and he wants to see many variables, many options.
Every substrate.
So you can use Pantone Live as the reference standard, or what he calls the dependent standard.
We could use the same colors on reproduction on our machine as well.
No, when he talks about inception, basically, you don't have to actually print your samples from when your designer actually gives you the color and the designs. You don't have to physically print them to see what is achievable. That is when he clearly says, at the time of inception, using the visualizer tool that is inbuilt in the Pantone Live, you can actually go back to a designer and tell him that this is what is possible. That's it.
It's one way.
You can never meet 100%.
It's not that designer is not using that tool. Designer is already using that tool. So designer, when he knows, if I have to use, say, reflex blue, when he selects the reflex blue, immediately goes and check. If I want to,
do you mean to say that all of the design agencies should also switch into Pantone Live?
Yes. You saw the error stack there, right?
I mean, if you're talking about a brand would be working with, like, say, 50, 60 brand creative agencies.
Exactly.
So you would emphasize every of their agency to work with Pantone Live?
Everyone. Then it leads to the error stack. Okay. That's what
because
all
the
the brands
danger,
are moving towards.
Yeah, I can say, Vineet, the danger is you will give a beautiful mock-up, six different, conceptions in the form of mock-ups. That fellow will get an approval in-house for mock-up number 6.
Exactly.
And then no printer can print it.
Perfect.
That's a challenge.
Okay, and then what happens? So they will end up thinking that you are showing something very beautiful. आप एक सपना दिखा रहे हो, which is not printable because the gamut of the printing machine is not capable of reproducing that.
Exactly.
I want to add, I think this Pantone Live, when it goes to the brand owners, they have certain colors, and when their designer is working on Illustrator or InDesign, when he does that, he doesn't have any other colors available except this when he makes his design. So he cannot use wrong color for that particular company, for that particular brand.
Yes.
That's where the designer starts it.
Yes.
And then he uses only those colors which are based on your printing conditions and so on, and the mock-up will be still required. So Trigon has no problem.
Yeah,
That's how it comes.
no, not only that. It's not just the pre-press and printer has a role to play. It's everybody in the supply chain has a role to play when it comes to color. Brand, design, pre-media, print. So everybody has a role to play. It's not just the proofing stage. you start matching the color. That's not right.
Half the 4.5 million designers in the world are already using Pantone Live because they are associated with one or the other brand directly. So now the challenge that we would have is to move the balance, half of them, to use Pantone Live. So I think majority of the work is done. So when you talk about a brand owner, the entire process starts again. I come back to it from inception. So the entire supply chain from design to reproduction is actually covered under Pantone Live.
It's not just limited to the print converter alone.
So you would emphasize all of the different stakeholders in the supply chain to
everybody
use the Pantone Live.
In the supply chain has to be part of it.
Okay. See, this is what Vinay was saying, discipline. I would say Pantone Live is enforced discipline.
Yes. Start point.
See, Pantone Live is not a software as such. It's a process.
It's a way of life.
Exactly.
So probably for the total control, color management, TCM,
Yes.
Pantone Live can be one of the major pillar. You start
Yes.
that, use that as
Yes.
a base,
Yeah.
and then grow up.
Yeah, yeah. And also, it's also very important. Standardization of substrate, which is also very important.
Can I ask a question, please? Yes. I have a small question from Mr. Vinay. Yeah. When we talk about the optimization of the press and we talk about the fingerprinting and everything, but when we go to the presses, we see that the press owners change inks randomly. They don't have even the densitometers. And the production targets are so big, so they don't even look at the color optimization. That is the practical things we have seen. We think about the big people like Nestle and P&G, they drive the color optimization. But even for the small brand owners, it is not even thought. So what do you think is a practical solution for this?
See, I agree that, in India, the MNCs have a particular way of looking at consistency of print, which the Indian companies may not have. They go with the LSD, whereas the MNCs go with the LSD with the delta E values. But yeah, with the production targets and changeover targets, little difficult to maintain it. The easiest way would be to, I would rather say, take your last proof sample, yeah, and then the first, after 10 days you print it, you compare it with your last proof. I think that works magic. You have, it goes without saying that the controls on press, standardization, sequence, everybody does that. What is important is the guy at night 2 o'clock has to get in sync with the QC guy who will give the approval, and he has to print like 5 tons or 10 tons of material in the night shift. For him, what is important? A benchmark. What is the benchmark? The last sample. Why last sample? Because it has gone to the factory of the customer. The inward inspection has accepted it. That means it is good. So, pardon? No, you do your process. You have all your processes. But I would say something that poor guy in the night shift, where all the managers are sleeping, he needs something to look at. Yeah, he should look at the last sample.
Here I would like to slightly disagree with you. You see, what happens is that the last sample is already within a delta E error value. So the original approval of the brand owner,
perhaps you are right.
The factory manager may have approved because it's within delta E, but now if you use it as a new standard, now again you will have a delta E. So now the next one which goes may get rejected. Okay, though the last one got approved.
But then what about, do you mean to say you need a full set of new plates because already it has got a dot gain?
It's multiple things. It's not just the plate alone.
Yeah.
When you are referring an analog value with an analog value. What we are talking about is you have printed it first time.
Correct.
And the value is recorded already.
Correct.
So it tells you how much you have already deviated from the dependent standard.
Okay.
So when you do the second print run, you're not referring to some physical value. You're again going back to the scorecard and checking how far are you from the dependent standard and this print.
Okay. But yeah, see, anyway, for job approvals, you have the LSD, which is signed by the brand manager, right? So that's the origin, that's the inception of Pantone Life. Yeah? I mean,
They're talking about doing away with the LSD.
nah, see,
Thinking about doing yeah.
see, on the shop floor, you'll always believe what the customer says. Uska sign hai to barabar hai. Yeah? So you will have that on the floor. You have the last sample, which is falling between that. So the one what is coming after the dot gains and all the gains, it has to fall somewhere nearby. It should be not off track. That's the point here. Because often what happens is, people do this mistake. Disagreement with the QC, yeah? And then you print it. Either you print it or stop it. Waste of time. So all these are realities, you should come out of it. I agree with Pantone Life. It's a nice concept. It can give a base. But then actual reality is where the question is right. I mean, you have to be spot on, Your decision at that moment is right, which will come only with a proper sequential training of people.
Yeah,
Not
that is
the
very
bosses.
important.
Yeah, not the bosses.
No.
Yeah, the operator who is running the press has also to think like a boss.
Yeah, in fact, in the last session, they mentioned that how easy to set it up at a new printer who is coming up, or how is it easy to print it at established printer.
Correct.
In my experience, it's very easy to implement all the solution at a new setup or a new printer than somebody who is established. Because the mind block is still there for them to change to the new technologies.
I do agree.
My question is relating, two of you mentioned that you found the costs of CI Flexo lower than that of rotogravure. Now, is this a comparison that is done from a like-to-like situation? For example, is it the same print job done Flexo and done by gravure and using the same ink systems and taking into account variations in running speed?
We have both the machines, so I would give you an answer of this. In the factory, we have a separate department which operates the CI Flexo as well as the rotogravure. And one of the brand owners, he wants the printing to be right in terms of his LIB value should match at wherever you print it, either on a rotogravure or either on a CI Flexo. So in terms of printing, we have all the plates for the job on the CI as well as on the rotogravure. Whenever need be, we print on it. But if you tell me in terms of the cost, per kg cost of printing a same job, I'm not leaving apart the investment that has gone into the press. I would rate CI Flexo to have higher turnaround. The ink GSM is on the lower side. I would put it at less, I would say at least 50% lower GSM. I'm saving on my solvent, which 95% people do not count in their costing. I have people, more happy people, because they can run the press, get the job done, and start with a new job. So if you talk about cost, these are one of the savings which I have seen. I mean, I'm not talking about people who are selling the machine or people who are selling equipment or people who are advising. I being on the shop floor, I have seen this kind of benefits, and no doubt our brand owners are still not concerned about wherever we print.
No, I understand that, but my point is,
yes,
you talked of a low GSM, that is accepted. You can always get the same print effect with a lower GSM of ink. But how about the fact that the Flexo inks are much more costly?
See, one thing is, if you see, what has happened is, if you go rewind 5 years behind, hardly as Mr. Amit Ray said that you might be having 4 or 5 presses. And you might be having 1 or 2 ink guys who is going to be after you to catch you saying that I'm making Flexo inks. Today, the situation is very different. Today, you have 15 to 16 presses coming in every month, every year. And you have a lot of ink companies that have come to India who want to propose more of Flexo solutions. So you have at least 5 to 7 companies who are having flexo inks. How they are performing, not performing, I have no idea. I cannot comment on that. But you have number of options to select from. When you have only one option, he's going to dictate terms to you. Today you have 7 options, 8 options to select the inks from. And you can squeeze them like they squeeze us.
No, but this is true for both gravure and flexo.
Of course, it makes sense. I mean, I have been buying inks
no,
from...
my question is that after taking it, you're saying that the cost of printing per square meter, for example.
Yes.
Don't take it as kg.
Ah.
Because square meter cost is the ideal way of checking it.
Yes, yes.
And after accounting for the changes in the printing speed, does that still hold?
Yes, of course. See, one thing is, if I would put it correctly, if I bought a press which can run at 400 meters per minute, I should run that press at 400 meters per minute. And if I don't run it, I guess I'm wasting something.
No, that's not...
I think the point has been covered. The owner of the business is saying there is a saving.
I'll just put it right way. If you're going to run the press at 300 meters per minute, the ink lay, the LAB values which have been profiled to run at 400 meters per minute, you would not get it.
No, I understand, but my question is very simple. It's not a like-to-like situation because you're comparing printing on an outdated press as on a much faster,
what he's saying is
more
your
recent
gravure press is old, your flexo is new. Is the reason why you're getting this?
No, nothing of that sort.
He says nothing. So we have to take him at his word. He's an investor. So that brings us to
Sir, to answer your question, I think in a nutshell it is like, 3 to 4 rupees cheaper. Flexography versus rotogravure. Yeah. With all the variables considered.
Ink is nowadays not costly because you have number of players selling inks.
No, he's getting a significant saving, and 3 to 4 rupees a kilo is a lot.